Hey everyone, welcome to World News. This week I will once again present you some interesting news from the entire world. Firstly, we'll talk about what Pope Francis thinks of porn, then we'll move on to how the plague still messes with our bodies even 700 years after it was exterminated, and we'll finish this delightful video with way less delightful news about Halloween in Seoul gone wrong. Oh, and one more thing, I am currently on vacation, so this video's quality might seem a bit off to you, but I really hope that you can still enjoy my content in the best way possible. So, now that you've probably determined whether you'll continue watching this video or not, let's start with the first topic. At the very beginning of this channel, on my first video to ever see this platform, I talked about Pope Francis telling people not to get pets. In this speech, he said that pets would be an easy alternative to parenthood and that the rising amount of people who choose pets over children would someday ruin humanity. So let's get back to the Pope talking about intercourse, or more the desire to have it. In a Q&A of some sort, he was asked what he thought about porn. And that's an interesting question if you think about it, because many Catholic priests, monks or nuns aren't allowed to have any form of sexual intercourse due to the clerical celibacy. And in case you are wondering what this clerical celibacy is, that's basically meant to prevent clerics from bequeathing their offspring with church property such as utensils made from gold or other materials of high worth. But back to the Pope talking about porn. Now, you can probably guess that he isn't exactly a fan of it, but he even seems to be quite concerned. According to Pope Francis, porn would, quote, weaken the priestly heart, quote end, saying that, another quote, the devil enters from there, quote end. Now, you can take from this what you want. I just thought that it'd be nice to talk about him once again since we started this channel with him, and who knows how long he'll hold this position or how long he'll live. Well, please don't get me wrong here, I don't want the Pope to die, but he once said that he would be looking forward to his death, in a sense that being Pope can be quite the burden, and if you're not holding on to your life, it can end faster than you think. Yes, that's psychologically proven. But enough chit chat about death, maybe you should take something from this. I am not saying that you should quit porn, but maybe think about whether this is really good for you or not. I mean, we live in a time where there is more porn, which is also more accessible than ever, and where a record number of young people have a porn addiction, and that definitely isn't fun. So please, profit from the wise words of an even wiser man. But enough Pope talk for today, let's move on to some interesting science concerning the plague or Black Death, which killed around half of Europe's population back in the 1300s. Now, you might rightfully ask why I'll tell you things about the plague from 700 years ago, since the plague doesn't exactly fall into the field of news. And that's true, but scientists now found that a mutation from that time is very likely to still affect our health. So, as said, the Black Death raged in the 1300s, taking more lives than both world wars combined. But scientists now discovered that specific mutations in a human gene called ARAB2 drastically decreased the chance of dying from the disease. For that, they conducted a study examining 206 skeletons of plague victims from England and Denmark to study the Black Death further. They published their findings in the journal Nature, with the most interesting being that these mutations in ARAB2 have led to people being 40% more likely to survive the plague. But that's not it. The best case scenario would have meant that both parents passed on these genes to their kids, bringing the chance of surviving the plague to up to 80%. That's crazy. Now, basic principles of genetics and selection tell us that the fittest, or in this case the people with these mutations, are more likely to reproduce. That means that this variation of genes emerged in the human genome, so after the Black Death raged in Europe, there were significantly more people with these mutations than before, and this trend continued to this date. But that's not what I want to talk about. This was merely foreplay to the real news. So we understand that after the plague there were much more people with this specific mutation, right? Well, another thing the scientists found out is that this mutation is linked to autoimmune diseases such as the inflammatory bowel disease Crohn's. Yeah, that's bad. But at least Crohn's isn't per se lethal. While it can be both painful and debilitating, it usually doesn't lead to life-threatening complications, but unfortunately they can be ruled out. The good news is that only 1 to 3 in 1,000 people get the disease, and symptoms like diarrhea, fever, fatigue, abdominal pain and blood in your stool or reduced appetite and weight loss mostly prevent it from staying undetected. So most people can get an early treatment, reducing both symptoms and the probability of any complications. You know, it's quite interesting how DNA from our past still influences our response to all sorts of illnesses and viruses, including COVID. But that's way too much to be covered here. Then let's talk about Halloween in Seoul instead, but it didn't look like this. For those of you who don't know, Seoul is the South Korean capital, and this year over 150 people died in the Halloween crowd surge in the city. But let's start at the beginning. In fact, Halloween isn't even that popular in South Korea. But as Seoul has grown more and more cosmopolitan in the past years, it has become quite the popular occasion, which escalated this year. Among the over 150 victims, there are at least 26 foreign nationals from 14 countries, according to South Korea's foreign ministry. But wait a minute, why did this all happen? Well, that's the thing. There is no such thing as the one reason this happened. But according to witnesses of the crushing, more and more people spilled into the narrow side streets of the Itaewon nightlife district, which is probably the reason for this disaster. Apart from that, these side streets can get quite steep, so young people who have had alcohol or other drugs could have likely fell over on these steep streets, leading to a wave of people going back and forth, killing many innocent people, mostly aged around 20. And to clear that out, I'm not saying that it's all the fault of alcohol, but it definitely didn't help the situation either. So on the next morning, instead of recovering from hangovers, Seoul's residents mourned the deaths of their loved ones. When researching information for this topic, I read about more destroyed families and devastated parents than I'd have liked to. Many parents had to collect the bodies of their children from big halls, and some simply don't want to accept the death of their loved ones and skim hospitals for any signs of their children, but many will never find them. So I can't imagine what it's like losing your child, so I can't say anything which could ease their pain. But my thoughts are definitely with these families, and hopefully such a thing never happens again. Well, that was pretty interesting. You see, one perk of producing videos for a channel like this is that you always have at least some interesting things to talk about with your friends and family. But anyways, people who regularly watch my videos hopefully know that there's always a bonus fact at the end of one of my videos, and this week it's not comforting. Have you ever heard of merit order? In case you haven't, this could really open your eyes regarding the costs of energy around the world. In many countries, most expenses are on a rise, among them being the costs of electricity. But what many people don't know is that these electricity costs are determined via the merit order system. That basically says that the least expensive electricity, such as the electricity coming from green energy sources, is induced into the power infrastructure before the more expensive energy. This way we get a little pyramid like this one, for example, right? Now, the catch of this system is that green energy doesn't begin to cover our need for electricity. So the governments also need to induce energy from more expensive power sources like power gained from coal or natural gases, as you can see in this chart. But at this point, the high costs of this energy set the base price for all energy. So the costs for all energy, whether it is green energy or fossil fuel based energy, skyrockets. But that's how it has been for the past decade, so that's not that much of a problem. The thing is, with the Russia-Ukrainian war, we are currently experiencing a gas and oil shortage, which is why these resources are much more expensive than they used to be. Now, when untethering this net and following the causal chain, we see that energy gained from fossil fuels is also way pricier than it used to be, which causes the costs of all electricity, even green electricity, which shouldn't be influenced by higher prices for gas and oil, to skyrocket. And that sucks pretty bad. Now, those who somehow managed to follow me through all of this might wonder where all the money is going which we pay the green energy firms on top of their base price. Well, they just take it as a tip, and right now these tips can be worth up to billions of dollars, euros, you name it. And I'm normally not that kind of a guy, but from this point of view, that system is pretty stupid. Yeah, just a quick update on how things are going on the energy front. Now, you have a great day.